Stephanie, will you poll the board?
Trustee Daniels?
Here.
Trustee Burrows?
Here.
Trustee Griffith?
Here.
Trustee Moon?
Here.
Mayor House?
Here. Joe?
Good evening, Mayor.
Good evening.
Trustees.
Good evening.
I'd like to put on your,
Wait,
budget dockets.
Budget.
She's got it.
Now you can start.
Tentative budget hearing for fiscal year commencing June 1st, 2024 to May 31st, 2025. Incorporated Village of Hempstead, legal notice. Notice is hereby given that pursuant to section 5-508 of the village law, the Incorporated Village of Hempstead will hold a public hearing on Monday, April 8th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. at Village Hall, 99 James A. Garner Way, Hempstead, New York. The tentative budget may be inspected in the office of the village clerk, 99 James A. Garner Way, Hempstead, New York.
Good evening, Mayor, trustees.
Good evening.
I'm sorry for how dry this is, but it's all numbers for the most part, so I'll try to go through it. You have an agenda up there, and there's about 10 pages that are behind that, and then the tentative budget, which my understanding is was not as public as it maybe could have been. It was under the accounting department. I would suggest that we put that on the homepage next year. So number one on the agenda in the general fund is the operating results from fiscal year 2022-2023. We had expenses of $92,399,195, revenues of $92,101,818. Showing a surplus of $502,000. That added to our fund balance. At the end of fiscal year 23, our fund balance was $27,492,516. My projections for this current fiscal year are expenses of $92,982,486 and revenues of $91,623,357, which represents a deficit of $359,129. That would make our fund balance as of the end of fiscal 24, $26,133,387. That also shows at the bottom of that page as far as our fund balance that is available going forward. And that's $26,133,387. Item number 3 is the budget summary for fiscal year 2025. The budget for fiscal year 2025 has appropriations of $99,474,373. Department revenues of $25,113,876. The use of fund balance is $7,750,426. The levy stays the same. There is no tax increase in this budget. The tax rate calculation is in the center of the page there. The tax levy stays at $66,610,071. The taxable assessed value has gone up from last year. It's gone up to $73,603,560 for a millage of 90.464 per hundred. Last year's was 90.894. That's an increase of 0.43 or 0.47% decrease in the millage. So since the tax levy stayed the same and the taxable assessed value went up, the millage comes down a little bit. Any questions so far? Next item is the sanitation user fees. That's the bottom of that page and also the next page. There's a chart that compares last year to this year. The overall cost of the sanitation division is $4,962,911. That represents a 1.67% increase over last year. There was an increase in the number of commercial stops, a decrease in the number of the There was a decrease in the number of commercial stops, an increase in the number of residential stops, and that's kind of what offset the increase of 81,000 into the budget percentage, but the increase is only 1.67% on the rates, whether they be residential, multiple dwelling unit, which is apartments, or commercial. The new rates for residential dwellings will be $440.27. This is yearly. The multiple dwelling units, $354.23. And commercial stops, $1,192.66. On the right side of that page is all the detail comparing this year versus last year. It shows the salaries, the capital expenses, which is for equipment, and the contractual expenses, which is for all other costs related to sanitation. We add in the fringe benefits, medical insurance, social security, pension and workers' comp, and that's how we determine the amount for that special district. It's a separate line on the tax bill. I'll add that in this budget there is an additional $52,000 allocated to be part-timers in the sanitation department. There's a $2 per hour raise from $17 an hour to $19 an hour for the part-timers in sanitation. Any questions on that? Item number 4 is the historical overview. It's on this page. I handed this out last year too. I added in the new year. There's a lot of information on this.
That's number 5.
This is, yes, number 5. Did I say 4?
Yeah.
I meant 5. So the first couple of columns here, fiscal year, this is fiscal years going back to 2011. And what I show here is FD fund balance used to balance the budget, and surplus or deficit. I'm just talking about those 3 columns first, and I want to talk about the use of fund balance. So the history is that we've used fund balance every year to balance the budget. In sum, over the years, like I said, 14 years here, we've used a total of over $58 million to balance the budget, and an average, as it turns out, of $4.2 million a year. This current budget is proposed at 7.7, so it's higher than the average. But what I'm trying to demonstrate here is the actual results that we've had is averaged over those years. And that's at the bottom of the surplus line. It says sum negative $1.3 million. So the fact that we budgeted all of this fund balance over the years is not that significant. It's the operating results that matter. So we've actually had, on average, a deficit of $1.3 million since 2011. Even though we've used or allocated $58 million over those years to balance the budget. And also, we've only had, on average, a deficit of $103,000 over all those years. So our operations have been pretty close to budget, regardless of the fact that we budgeted fund balance to balance the budget. Everybody understand that? Next, column, it says taxable assessed value. This is, I want to talk about recovery and growth. So if we go back to 2011, you can see the total assessed value of the village was $3.7 billion. The economy turned then. That was the peak of assessed value for this village. It was back in 2011. And it declined. It reached its bottom in 2015, and it's continued to rise. It wasn't until 2023 that it got close to the 3.7. So the recession that hit in 2008, 2009, hurt the value of this village. It wasn't recovered until 2023. Now the next one above it is highlighted. Those 2 numbers are highlighted because you can see now, as in 2024, the taxable assessed value has gone up to $4.3 billion. That's an increase of 15.6%. That's showing that we have a lot of growth in value in the village. So not only have we now recovered from the recession of the late 2010s or 2000s, we are now clear of that and 15% higher than we were in the last fiscal year. Next column, allowable tax levy. The allowable tax levy is based on your taxable assessed value. And what I'm leading to is the constitutional tax levy. Our actual tax levies have been historically, in the middle there from 2017 to 2022, there's no tax increase, so the tax levy was the same for all those years. And the column all the way on the right is the levy change. So you have many years that there are zeros and there are years that there were some increases in the tax levy. This budget doesn't have any, but what I'm trying to show here is that the boxes on the bottom, the CPI since 2011 has gone up 37, almost 38%, yet the levy has only gone up 26.9%. So the rise in the levy, both in average and overall, has been less than the CPI since 2011. So on average, we've had a tax increase of a little bit more than $1,000 on the right. The increase since 2011 of the overall tax levy is $14 million, but the average per year has been about $1 million. The next page is the letter that we've received and receive every year from the New York State Controller. That is referring to the constitutional tax limit. And as I've said in the past, we are very close to this limit. It is something we have to manage.
Hey, Joe, hold on 1 second. Can you
Yeah.
take the microphone that you flipped around and flip it back because they can't hear you online?
Sorry,
All right,
I didn't see
Thank
the move, I must have bumped it.
thank you. Sorry.
So you can see from the historic overview page where we were with the constitutional tax limit. Some years we actually exceeded it. At this point, we are at 90%. You do get exclusions for the tax limit, and that brings us down. This year, we're at 82.5%. So by not raising taxes, we are putting ourselves in a better position financially with regard to the tax limit. So what the state keeps reminding us is that we're there, we need to watch it and manage it. The page after that, there are two constitutional limits as it comes to villages. One is the constitutional tax limit, and that's what I was just referring to. We are at 82.5%. This is the chart here. And the second from the bottom line is 82.5%. That is what's been filed with the state. That's after exclusions. Your debt service counts as an exclusion. And then the page after that has a debt limit. So while we're at 82.5% of our tax limit, there's also a constitutional debt limit. We're only at 7.89% of that. So while our tax limit is very high, our debt limit is very low. And that's indicative of us not really having a capital plan. If we had a regular capital plan, our debt level would be much higher. But when you borrow the money, you have to pay for it in operating, and we can't really afford it right now because you couldn't raise taxes if you wanted to cover it. So that's the general fund. Any questions on that so far? No? I'll move into the water fund. I didn't bring down the big board. We did not have a hearing this year because last year's hearing, we approved 2
Joe, can I
years.
interrupt you for 1 second? If you rewind, I do want to ask you a
Yeah.
question. I think your last statement, what you just said in the last statement, for some could be, people with their minds could go other places. Can you talk about, though, the amount of debt that is maturing and
Yes.
and how that is going to free up some capacity? So to say that, I just don't want people to get concerned and say,
Okay, yeah,
we can't
correct.
borrow
I'm
anymore
sorry.
because we can't afford it.
Yeah.
Can you please give it a bigger?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So there is a capital plan, but right now it's being funded by ARPA. So the capital plan that we have, I set up, it's over 10 years, but I don't have funding for every year. So what I'm doing is, I'm doing a replacement, if you will. So I'm retiring $1.6 million in debt service in 2026. So by replacement, what I would do is I'll go out in 2026 for a borrowing for as much money as I can, that the debt service would be $1.6 million on. So that's currently about $18 million. So we can go out and borrow $18 million in 2026, and it'll have zero impact on the budget. Everything that we have to pay back will be zero. And then the next time we have another debt obligation that gets retired, that's going to be in 28. We can then replace that debt service with new money, new borrowings. So that's currently what we're doing. What I meant was we didn't have the money, we haven't increased our amount of debt service to pay for the capital needs of the village. And I did misspeak there. So we do have a capital program, there's some capital in operating, and then there's capital that we're doing either with the ARPA money or with the replacement of existing debt service. Is that better?
Could you just explain to the people that don't understand what the ARPA money is?
ARPA is the American Recovery Act, and that's money that we got from the federal government a couple of years ago, and you can use it for any kind of government provision of any government services. We got over $16 million, $16.8 million, and we've been using that for the purchase of trucks and repairs to roadways and whatever we can in the village. We still have some of that money left. We need to obligate that by the end of this the end of this calendar year. So once I'm finished with the operating budget, I'm going to revise what we have as the capital budget, and then we'll resume and figure out how to spend the remaining money of the ARPA. Now, when ARPA first came out, for villages, there was a per capita amount, and that would have brought us about $9 million in change. And that's what I expected. So I was surprised and happy when we got $16 million directly, or $16.8 million directly from the feds, from the federal government. Any other village in New York State, as far as I'm aware of, only one, had to get their money from the counties. And it was based on that per capita amount, which we got almost double. So we've been using the ARPA money for our capital needs, and that included the purchase of property on South Franklin for the fire company.
Fire department.
Fire department.
16.
Okay. Budget results for the water fund. First is the rate sheet that was advertised. We had the budget hearing last year that covered 2 years' worth of rates, so we're following that. And looking for my page.
What do you need?
The last page would be the budget fund balance.
There goes our ARPA money.
Which number?
Fund balance page, would be that one.
Hold on, Joe, let him plug you back in.
Sorry, this is one. Water fund, operating results for fiscal 2023. Expenses, $9,665,689. Revenues, $11,776,797. A surplus of $2,111,108, giving us a fund balance at the end of fiscal '23, $11,208,661. That's what we've been trying to accomplish with the rise in the water rates over the last 3 years. We are adding to the fund balance. We're up to $11.2 million now. And the purpose of that is to be able to afford the additional debt service we expect to take on for the continued improvement in the water plant. Projections for fiscal '24, expenses, $12,041,487. Operating revenues, $13,948,676. An expected surplus right now of $1,907,189, which would put the surplus in the fund balance at $13,115,850 in the water fund. The rates are on the schedule here that was advertised, and we noticed that there was an error in this last year. And that error is the effective August 1st, 2024 rates. The first rate there says $27. Here I have it circled. So it was supposed to be 30. But we had the hearing last year, and that was on the chart. It was the only place, it was a typo that was put on the chart. With our consultant, Bob Holzmacher, and his staff, we've determined that we can leave that at $27. We don't need to raise it, so it's actually gonna be a decrease in the base rate. So that would mean that the minimal payer and user of water will only have to pay $9 a month or $27 a quarter for their water service. We discovered that decreasing that by $3 per quarter does not have a significant impact on the revenue of the water department. Most of the water department revenues are raised in the variable rate by the usage, not in the entry-level rate for the minimum use.
And that's
So-
by meter size.
What's that?
By meter size.
Yes. Up to and including 3/4 would be $27. So
Which isn't
minimum-
residential.
We say, they're grandma's water rate, low user, and entry level, if you would, service.
Yeah, I didn't understand, so what's that, what's the meter size have to do with it?
The meter size has a lot to do
The
with
pipe size.
whether it's commercial,
The pipe size. Your
residential.
ability to draw water is a big
Both
factor.
can't talk at the same.
I'm sorry, the ability to draw water is a big factor in your water bill. If you had a larger pipe, you're gonna get a larger base price even for not using water, and it costs more per gallon. It's because your ability to draw against the system. We only have so much ability to deliver. So if someone has an inch pipe, they're gonna get a bigger bill than a 3/4 inch pipe, or a 2-inch pipe, that's gonna get a bigger bill. Just same usage, you get a much bigger bill. So it starts on your ability to draw water out of the system as opposed to just actual usage. So
It's
your
the amount
connection
of water that's actually flowing through that meter.
What's that?
It's the water that's actually flowing through that 1-inch
Yes,
or
but if you
2/4
have
meter.
a larger pipe going in, if you have a 2-inch pipe versus a 1-inch pipe, your costs are gonna be more expensive just because you have the ability to draw more through that pipe.
Correct.
So if you use the same thing with a 2-inch pipe versus somebody that uses a 1-inch pipe, your bill's gonna be significantly higher because you have a larger pipe.
So you're just basically saying that residential is less than commercial?
Yes, oh yeah. Yeah, you can go up to a 6-inch pipe.
Sure.
Let's see. So the budget for water in the tentative budget does show it's budgeting a surplus, if you will, which is a little unusual, but that's what we're doing here because we're trying to generate fund balance. So to balance the budget, I have a line on page 22 of the tentative budget. It's right in the middle of the page, transfer to capital projects, and that represents the surplus that's to be generated in the general fund, in the water fund. So the expenses of the water fund are $14,085,500, and the revenues are the same, $14,085,500. Any questions on the water fund? So the rate schedule would go up August 1st as per the advertised rate, and we are going to honor the $27 minimum rate. As I said, it has a minimal impact to generating. And we said when we started this a few years ago, I think this is year 4 of the increases in water, that if we were off course, that we would either change or stop the rate increases. But we are on course. The development of the plant and the processes that have to be built there are a little bit behind, but that's because we were trying to find a cheaper way to do it. The AOP and the 1,4-dioxane issues. So we do expect that we're going to have to go out to borrow for the water fund pretty soon. We have authorized, I think, $47 or $48 million. We have generated some commitments for grants that would offset a large part of that. But the debt of the water fund is expected to go up. The water fund does not impact the constitutional debt limit. It's deemed that it's in the public good for water to be clean and readily available to the residents, so they don't count debt for water, delivery of water into your net limit. So that does not impact our 7.8% in the capital constitutional debt limit. The last thing I have is the modifications to the tentative budget. They're only in the F fund, only in the water fund. I don't have any changes at this time for the general fund. So I would look for the board for resolution to accept these modifications to the tentative budget. And that is all on this last page there. And with that, take any questions anybody has.
Right. All right, at this time, we're going to open it up to questions. If anyone from any of our village residents have any questions, you could come up, state your name, and ask your question.
Ren Bethany, 61 William Street, Hempstead. Oh, my first name is spelled R-E-I-N-E, and it's pronounced Ren. And then my last name is Bethany, which is usually a first name, which really messes people up, but Ren Bethany is my name, yeah. 61 William Street. I don't really have any questions except because I don't mind what people are paid. It's okay if they're paid well, and I don't have any questions about that stuff, but I can't quite. I felt like nothing that I have in these pages is anything like what you seem to be reading out from there. So I guess it's a simple bottom line question. Have our taxes gone up? You were saying they have not.
There's no increase in the tax levy.
In the tax levy, and
But
that's
your
the,
individual taxes may change because everything changes once through assessment. If one property changes its assessed value, that changes everybody else's share of the pie. So right now, the millage is gonna go down. So.
wait,
your
millage
tax might go down. Millage is your tax rate.
is the tax rate, and the tax rate is what the amount is calculated from. It's so many per $100 and so on.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, but I feel sort of like I walked into a Greek lecture and I'm not understanding that much of the terminology, so I'm sorry, my questions are really basic.
And I'll meet with anyone and explain in detail. I'm happy to do that. So.
Okay, but that I guess, maybe that's the bottom line question we already have. Are my taxes going to be higher? But I do recognize that property values fluctuate, and that's, the village isn't alone in.
So if your
Having.
assessed value stayed the same, your taxes would go down by 0.47%.
They would.
A little bit, yeah.
So the assessed value is the same, so possibly everybody's taxes might shift downward, village tax, that is.
The small growth in the taxable assessed value means that we're spreading the tax levy over more value, so it goes down.
Okay, that sounds good. I might come in and sit with you a little bit. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I have a question, because I know that we met and we were discussing the different things that we went line by line. And one of the questions that I was actually wondering, I know we had spoken, you said that there is some kind of a deficit in terms of, I think it was about 4 million in debt that we spoke about. So I was wondering about the deficit.
In deficit?
Yeah, do we have any kind of, excessive amount of money to try to bring things down where we're not trying to borrow anything?
I'm not sure what you mean by deficit. I'm projecting for this year about a $1.3 million deficit in
Right.
operating.
Okay. So what do we do to try to bring that down? Is there any kind of plan?
Well, during the course of the year, I monitor spending, and if I see something that's getting out of line, so to speak, I would address that with the department head. For instance, if there's overtime in DPW or overtime in this year is very high. There's an offset, if you will, with their regular pay.
Right,
That's because their head count was low. I think they went as low as 116 or 117. Right? They're authorized to go up to about 130. And if you are under 120, you absolutely will see impact on your overtime rate. So when you're saving money in your straight pay, you have to have somebody cover the hours because your head count's low. So there's more overtime. So, but I watched that during the year. And, you know, right now, the straight pay for overtime, the straight pay for police is low relative to the budget, and their overtime is high relative to the budget.
okay, and, I know that that's something that they're looking to hire more police officers so that we don't spend
The low point
as much?
was around 116 or 117. I think they're at 22 or 23 now. So I would expect to see from that an increase in their regular pay, their straight pay, and a decrease in the overtime. And I've been seeing that generally over the last few months.
Okay, which should also help with the budget too.
So baked into my expectation, my estimate for this year of a deficit of 1.3 is about $1 million deficit between police straight pay and their overtime. They'll be about $1 million over. And I'm not saying it's all their fault. I'm just saying that the sum of everything, you know, it looks right now as a deficit of 1.3. Coincidentally, I'm looking at a deficit in the police pay line of about $1 million.
Okay, which will be balanced out when they get more workers, so they're not doing as overtime.
Would come down
Right.
as your regular headcount goes up.
Okay, and also I was looking at, the travel expense, that's another, line item that I was looking at, training and traveling. And I noticed that, training and traveling, I guess, going by line, 1010, and that's line 474. I know that with the trustees, I noticed that it's $4,000. But then when I go down to the other lines that I'm looking with training and stuff like that, I noticed that here under the mayor's line, we have training and traveling at $45,000. It seems very high. You know, why?
So when budgeting for the board,
Joe, before you answer that, high in comparative to what?
High compared to,
The trustees?
Wait.
is that for me? I'm
No,
sorry.
no, yeah, he's
Is that,
asking you.
is that for me?
Yeah. he's asking
Yeah, I
you.
mean, 'cause I don't think Joe can answer a question outside of what the historicals are. But what did you said that it's
'Cause I
high
was-
in comparison to what?
Well, compared to what I see, first, you know, what I'm seeing here, I saw 30, then 35, then 22, you know, saw 22, and now I'm seeing 45, so that's my question.
So high in comparison to previous years?
Previous years, I'm seeing at
So, but-
45,000.
But unfortunately, the budget also doesn't capture the grant funding that hasn't been collected in this year but has been committed. And what you would see, as long as that increase from 20,000 to 45,000, there's also I could say, how much, 100 times return on that in grant monies coming into the village of Hempstead. So you cannot, and I mean, clearly the mayor can answer for himself. I don't think you can judge one without the other. You can't manage the village, you can't grow the village with just staying in the village. You have to be out, you have to be promoting the village of Hempstead, and then when monies come in, you have to make sure you do what you're supposed to do with the money so you can go out and get more money. So I don't think we can look at a $20,000 expense increase and compare it to the over $40 million that have come in under this administration.
Right, and let me add that, so the trustees' budget of $4,000 for training and travel is New York Conference of Mayors. Trustees do not attend the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Trustees don't attend the African American Mayors Conference. Trustees don't attend the Democratic Mayors Association because you're not mayors, you're trustees. So I attend more conferences than the trustees.
and if you'll indulge me, you know, what I said before, I think is indicative of what we're talking about. about the ARPA money. Why did we not get treated like every other village?
Through travels that the mayor has made, relationships bringing up that amount
I
of dollars.
can't say that for sure, but for some reason, we didn't get 9 million, we got 16 million.
Well, we've got
We
16,
were treated not
Right.
like any other village in the state.
we received 16.8 or $8 million instead of the 9 million by going to Washington DC, meeting with the president, meeting with the cabinet that was discussing the use and the usage of ARPA funding, and as a member of the U.S. Conference of Mayors Policy Committee, we sat down in DC and said that instead of funding the money through the county and through the town where we would have got nothing, we wanted to go direct to the villages. So that's what happened.
Well, I still understand the fact that you do have to travel to build relationship, but my question still is $45,000. It seems to be a lot. So, you know, that's my opinion, and this is a budget meeting, and that's just what I'm saying.
Right, so,
Thank you.
and you asked the question and we answered.
And I
Everybody's
gave you my
entitled
answer.
to opinion, you know what they say about opinions. All right, what's the next?
What do they
Next
say?
question?
I didn't have a question.
Oh,
But I'd say there was money that was brought in here prior to this administration, because even before I was a sitting trustee, I helped bring money in here as well, that you didn't.
Well,
Who?
this is, not to create a back and forth, I think what we're trying to communicate to the residents is that there is a direct correlation, one can argue it if they want to, there's a direct correlation to growing the village and bringing money in, and the success of the mayor in creating the relationships and confidence to bring that money to bear in Hempstead. So while there have been dollars that have been allocated to Hempstead in the past, they're nowhere close to the amount of money that's now coming into to Hempstead from the state level and from the federal level. That's just the facts. Whether, you know, you can go back and forth as to whether or not anybody can draw a line between the mayor and doing it, or did people all of a sudden decided that Hempstead is the place they want to give their money to. But, you know, I mean, to me, the smart money would be to the person that's actually put it to work and continues to go out there and build relationships to get more money. And you can argue about the timing of anything, but I will tell you that it was during this administration that we received money directly from the bipartisan infrastructure bill. And not only did we get grant funds, right, and they had to spread the money out to various municipalities, we also received a 0% interest loan. 0% interest. So that's basically saying if we do have to borrow, there's no cost to the money that we borrow. And I think that is significant achievement, and I hope we continue to do that. And I hope that the community continues to support going out and bringing these monies in. We can't be a village and just sit behind a desk in the village. That's stagnation. And that's a little bit of the reason we're in the situation that we're in. You need to be out. You need to be bringing resources, figuring out what are best practices in other places, not just in the village of Hempstead. We're a worldly people. We can't do that sitting at 99 James A. Garner Way. And the mayor is a full-time position, not a part-time position. And he's full-time here and full-time out, even on the weekends. 7 days a week, and then on call for any fire and any police emergency. Even when he's traveling as deputy mayor, I'm the next call. You better go to this, you need to be there. What happened to that? He finds out and he's moving. So it's a 7-day-a-week, 365-day job. And if you spend $40,000 to go out and you bring me back 40 million, I'll take those every day. I'll take that return.
right, and listen, and it's not to take away from the fact that when the trustee did work for Senator Thomas, that Senator Thomas gave funding until he, you know, the trustee was removed from working for him. You know, while he was there, he did bring in money.
You know, this is not an argument, because I noticed that you guys keep saying that. It's a question. And I think that when we ask a question, it's just a matter of just getting an answer. You guys made yourself clear. We thank you. I thank you for your answer. But it's not an argument because I questioned something. That's what we were elected to do, to question the people.
Right, and I think.
if we see something, excuse me, I'm finished.
Trustee, but I think you're
Excuse me,
confused.
allow me to-
Nobody's arguing.
Right.
We're
but
answering the
you-
question.
Excuse me, allow me to finish, just like you
Sure.
had a chance. I thank you so much. But I'm just saying that you guys keep on saying argument. It's
Who's
not an
arguing?
It was said several times. We can go back and watch the video, but I'm just letting you know that it's not an argument. I'm just asking questions. That's the purpose of this budget meeting, to ask questions. And that's what's being done, you know, so I understand why, and I still ask the same question, and I still stand behind what I'm saying. It's a budget meeting, and we're just asking questions. So, you know, there's no back and forth and no argument, Deputy Mayor. So I just want you to know that I'm not arguing with you. I'm asking a question to the treasurer, and I wanted an explanation. There's no argument.
Right, and again, I want to make it clear that, you know, we're answering the question. And the definition under the etymology of the word argument, for those that went to law school, arguing is not always a bad thing. It's stating your stance and standing on what you're saying, that's all. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No?
No
That was
questions
mine.
to the public.
Any other questions from the general public, residents? All right. With no questions from the community, no questions online, can I get a motion to close out our?
Move. Motion. Motion.
Trustee Daniels?
Yes.
Trustee Burrow?
Yes.
Trustee Griffith?
Yes?
Trustee Moon?
Yes.
Mayor Hopkins?
Yes. All right, thank you, get home safe.
Let's go Connecticut.